today for our circle scarf is this very thin floral print piece of fabric, which is going to be perfect for spring and summer. I have here a piece of fabric that is 62 inches by 13 inches. The length of your fabric is actually going to depend on how long you want your scarf to actually be. You should also keep in mind that we're going to be folding the width of our scarf in half so that we can turn it inside out later. So what you're going to do next is you're going to pin down the length of the scarf. Now that you're finished pinning the piece of fabric together, we're going to be sewing a straight stitch through the fabric. And remember, the right sides are facing together. After sewing about 1 inch in, we're going to do a reverse stitch. And then we're going to sew all the way down. The last inch of fabric, do a reverse stitch again, and then sew all the way through. Now you're going to want to turn your scarf inside out. And then you have something like this. Making sure that the seam line is at the top and the fold is at the bottom, we're going to sew a straight stitch through the scarf where we want our gather to be. And remember, there is no need to reverse stitch for the gathers. Your scarf should have gathered like this. Remember to keep the ends of the thread. We'll be using this later. You can repeat this process as many times as you need to get as many gathers as you want. It should look a little something like this now. This part really isn't as complicated as it seems, but make sure to listen closely. You want the right sides facing together, and make sure that the two seams are going to be sewed together like so. Starting at the seam, pin the ends together. And because this is an opening, you're not going to be able to pin the whole thing together, but pin as much as you can. So when you have pinned as much as you can, you're going to start sewing, starting where the seam is. Be sure not to accidentally sew in other parts of the scarf. So what you're doing should look a little something like this. This is the opening end of your scarf, and you're going to sew down as much of it as you can to the other opening of the scarf. So make sure to keep matching up the two ends of the fabric and then sewing it together. Keep pulling the fabrics together as much as you can. Now that you've sewn the two openings at the end of each of the scarf together, you have this little bit of an opening that you couldn't sew together. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn this right side out, and you should notice that your scarf is now connected together. With the little opening that you couldn't sew before, you want to pull the fabric in like this and then do a blind stitch. Make sure to use a color that blends in with the fabric. So now your scarf is connected and it looks like this. Now we just have to deal with the loose threads from the gathers that we did earlier. What I did was I just threaded the loose piece of thread into a needle, and now I'm going to sew it into the fabric just so it doesn't ungather itself, since we couldn't do a reverse stitch earlier. So just sew it in a couple of times. And then we're going to make a little knot. So just go through the piece of thread like that, and you have a knot. And you can snip off the extra tail now. By sewing the ends of the thread into the scarf, you ensure that the gathers won't unravel and that you will not have any loose threads.